Welcome back. Thank you once again for hanging out with us. This is the one and only IT in the D Show. I am your host, Bob Waltenspiel, always hanging out with co-host, producer extraordinaire, Randy Walker. Guests this week, we got Dan Salinas, Sarv Shah. He's an old friend of mine. They are from Nobl9. We're going to be talking about, this is new to me, cyber reliability, SROs, bunch of acronyms I've never heard of. Should be enlightening and to hopefully teach you a thing or two. You can find us online, itinthed.com. Do us a favor, give us a like on the socials and subscribe to us everywhere fine podcasts are sold. Don't forget meetup.com/IT in the D. I think we're setting up. What are we setting the stage for, Randy? Are we going to do Eastern Palace or are we going to Nancy Whiskey?
I think we're going to try Nancy Whiskey for starting in June. So that'll be June 20th. I got to run over there to confirm with them, but I think based on the past, they haven't had a problem with us and we don't cause problems. You hear that, everybody? We don't cause problems. So.
Hopefully it doesn't last. I think last year we were 3 for 3 on getting rained out. And we had to move it indoors. But either way, we're 2 for 2. Yeah. Either way, we will be there. Just check us out online, meetup.com/IT in the D. Dan, Sar, how they treating you? Welcome to the show. Thank you for hanging out with us.
Thanks, Bob. Thank you, Bob.
So I said, Sar, tell me what you do. And you gave me the speech. And I'm like, and I'm writing everything down. And I kind of understand, but I absolutely have no idea what you all do. And so I guess let's start from the top. Cyber reliability. I've heard site reliability engineers. I know what that is. I've heard of, but cyber reliability. Okay, this is it a spin or is this an old practice?
No, it's actually site reliability, like you said.
Yeah,
site reliability engineering, right? So the art of keeping things running at premium performance. I don't know if you want to interject there, Dan.
Yeah, I know the practice of site reliability kind of came out of Google when they scale up to cloud scale, right? They needed to run services at high degrees of nines, and running things kind of the old way where there'd be an incident and then you get a bunch of people in the room and everybody yell at each other and point fingers at each other and try to figure out how to fix it wasn't really working for them. So they kind of came up with this practice called site reliability engineering, which most people have kind of picked up. And the concept there is that you'll proactively, sort of look at and figure out where your reliability issues are coming from and manage those. And what we do or focus on is something called service level objectives, which are a key tool that site reliability engineers use to measure the performance of services. So that's kind of the background of the company. But the reason that people are using or doing this at all is, like, if you think about companies are moving more and more digital, the pandemic sort of increased that. Like traditional, I don't know, you don't call them brick and mortar, but old businesses that weren't born in the cloud have even moved digital. Like banking is all digital. You don't book flights through, through the ticket people. I mean, you book them online. Everything's online, right? So the reliability of software platforms is critical to the business. So site reliability kind of came up there. So the SLOs really help people measure that, the reliability of their services.
So what's the difference between like a SRO and a KPI? We're good. I love acronyms in this business, but it's a honest question. Like, what's the difference? Is there one?
Well, so a KPI might be like, we want to have 90. We want this service to be available 99.9% of the time. SLOs is the mechanism for measuring that.
Got it.
It takes information out of an IT system, which they're called service level indicators, and then it puts and measures that reliability.
So when you're talking are you talking infrastructure, or are you talking just software? Or are you talking a combination? What are you actually talking about?
We're talking about a combination. So, like, most times people start with like the app that touches the customer the most. And you establish, so what does my customer expect this service to be? Product management might define it or whatever. So, like, I don't know, I'm at the drive-through, and when I click the order button, I expect that to respond back within, 2 milliseconds, or I'm going to check out. I hit the button. I expect that. That's a KPI, and that's where you might put an SLO. But then you have supporting service level objectives of that. So that particular service depends on middleware that then talks to databases, which run on networks, which run on cloud infrastructure. So each one of those relationships you put SLOs on so that you can understand the whole stack. So you start with what your customer expects, and then all the dependent things on there. So I'll give you an example. So like, we have a wealth management client where, like, if you pull up the balance on your screen, right, you go in and you see your balance. That balance, in order to make that appear, depends on literally hundreds of microservices that then have to fire in order to create that 1 millisecond response time. So putting all that together and understanding that is critical to businesses, so that they know where their reliability issues are coming from. So because if that bank balance shows up in 30 seconds versus 1 second like it's supposed to, what's driving that? First of all,
and you're done as a customer.
Right. And then you got people churning.
So I want to break this down all the way to the simplest of terms, because it's something that drives me absolutely nuts. Every 6 months or so, the cloud goes down. And I grew up in the, when it was called shared hosting still, and then it changed to the cloud. But I understand basically how they're architected, designed, and how they're built. And it makes me scratch I don't have any hair anymore, but like pull my hair out as to how does the cloud, if the cloud is built the way it's supposed to be built, how does it go down? I guess what's your take, or what have you seen? How that is, it an application? Is it Johnny with the plug going, sorry, oopsie? What is it from your side of the fence?
The reality is the service level objective, or SLA, from the cloud providers for a single region is like 99.9.
Sure.
Like, you can't, if you don't design your application correctly, you can't get higher than 99.9, because you're
Well, 0.9, I forget how many hours is 0.9 of downtime. Do you remember? Does anyone know? I'll Google it sometime. Randy, you want to look it up?
45 minutes per month.
45 minutes per month. Okay.
Yeah.
But I'm talking like it was down for like 12 hours, 14 hours, something like that. And I'm looking at,
if you think about the layers, right? There's the cloud provider that has 99.9. Then you have the network provider, which has, some service level. Then you have the application itself. Then so each one of these layers interjects reliability, and like the AT&T outage that happened. What was that, like,
right,
3 months ago? Which I was with Sarv, actually. I was on Verizon. He was on AT&T, and he went to go check in. We were at the airport going to check in, and he couldn't check in, so I had to check him in for him, because the airlines are so dependent on technology actually working.
Absolutely.
Which is not another reason that we have a lot of airline clients, because they're starting to measure all this stuff too, so they can understand that. But the AT&T outage was actually a dependency on a third party that was down, that had application issues. So like, all these applications are getting constructed from millions of different places, right? You have your single sign-on service. You might have all sorts of things. So that's how you can get outages like that, is because it's actually kind of complicated to put all these. The benefit is that everybody's releasing faster, right? The microservices, you're able to release faster. The challenge is that now all these things have to work in concert to make, from a customer experience perspective.
So is that what you do? I guess here's the thing. Like when I start hearing about this kind of stuff and the layers and the complexity and everything, and obviously I've been we've been in the business a long time. I think at what point do you just blow it up and like start from scratch? Because like, even like if you look at security, if you look at the different types of things, like has it gotten too complicated, or is this just the nature of the beast that we live in?
Well, I mean, there's benefits to it, right? I mean, I think it's important to understand those, right? So one of the things that's driving this is people want to release software. Like Google wanted to release things like every day or multiple times a day, right? Versus a monolithic app that you release once a year, right? That runs, like that. So, breaking up these applications into microservices allows you to take advantage of cloud economics, right? So that because if you move a VM into the cloud, it's super expensive,
Sure.
really expensive. But if you break it up and use, Lambda functions and these sorts of functions in the cloud, it's a lot cheaper. But the challenge is, the benefit is that it's cheaper and that you can have individual development teams working on these little pieces independent of each other so that they can release faster. So yes, it's more complicated from that perspective, but you definitely get better, release faster, and you take advantage of the cloud economics. The challenge just is that you have to coordinate those things, and this is why SRE was built by Google, because they this is how they invented it, and they came out with service level objectives for the different teams to communicate expectations. So like I run the single sign-on service. The people that use my service should expect the login request to be fulfilled within a millisecond 99.9% of the time, and I'm going to measure myself to that. The payments processing service, people depend on that, right? Different.
Sure.
You can imagine people depend on my service and my SLO to the business. My commitment to the business is that within 1 millisecond, I'll process my transaction and return that back to you. The mobile service, the mobile app, my GUI will respond, so everybody sort of dictates what their reliability goals are, and then they measure them. So in a lot of ways, there's a lot better communication among the teams. And what we're seeing is people that have adopted service level objectives on a massive scale and on a organizational scale are seeing basically elimination of their SEV1 incidences, because everybody understands what they're responsible for, and everybody's accountable, and everybody delivers to their accountability, and things just work.
So I'll tell you, in this world with the economy the way it is, and every company looking to save money, when they have SEV1 incidents, a lot of times, a lot of large companies will throw 10 to 20 people into a war room and just sit there and try to figure out what went wrong for 2 or 3 or 4 hours. And those are expensive people. So the cost savings, when you can eliminate or at least reduce SEV1s in a large enterprise organization, is pretty valuable. And that's simple.
And I think it's funny, Dan, you hit a point where I think us as consumers are I'm going to be frank, we're spoiled assholes. My app that's on my phone needs to work 1,000% of the time. If it even hiccups and glitches, I hate your guts. It reminds me of a joke from Louis C.K. when he's talking about flying and getting Wi-Fi for the very first time. I don't know if you've ever seen this bit. I think it was on Conan, and he's like, "Hey, ladies and gentlemen, we're introducing Wi-Fi on the plane," and he's all excited. I get to use my, he goes, in an hour in the flight, he goes, this is the Wi-Fi goes out, and he apologized, and he goes, the guy next to me looks at me and he goes, "Well, that's bullshit." And he goes, "This didn't exist yesterday. Like, we're flying in a tube, we're getting Wi-Fi." But I think that's how we are as consumers now. Like, we will not put up with downtime, period. And I don't know.
Perfect. Yeah. That's exactly what we deliver, right? So in this digital migration world where everybody's dependent on apps, having these SLOs improves customer experience in a magnitude that you can monitor and manage across all of your applications.
So for somebody that doesn't know what an SLO is, like, obviously we know the acronym, but what it is, or give me a couple examples or use cases of like, what would it be that an SLO would measure? Because I'm looking at your dashboard right now and I'm looking, okay, what's most reliable? I see front end, you know what I mean? What are give me some examples of what you guys are measuring.
Yeah. So everybody's familiar with SLAs, right? Service level agreements, right? And so when Dan gave you that example of AT&T, you have a contract with AT&T, like my cell phone did, which was a funny story because my Uber worked when I was on the hotel Wi-Fi. And then we got in the car and I was like, something went wrong. And then when I finally got my IT back, or my internet back, of course, I had 4 texts from my wife saying, "Did you pay the bill?" Right? Because my daughter's cell phone was down. Everybody was down. And it wasn't me. It was AT&T. But that's...
But at first I thought you didn't pay the bill. You're like, could I pay the bill?
I did question it myself. I was like, well, I've been doing a lot of stuff. But anyways, service level agreement, right? So in that scenario, they violated an SLA that we all depend on, is that we think our cell service is up all the time. So an SLA is an agreement. To be able to achieve that SLA, people will take their SLA, let's say it's at 99%. So you have 1% of error budget. People will set their SLO, their service level objective, like 0.1% higher. So a 99.1%. So that they know internally that they're always delivering on their SLA, for example. And then there's another SL, which is an SLI. And an SLI is a service level indicator.
You just made that up to confuse us, didn't you? Is that?
Yeah, absolutely. and so what you do there is you say, well, you say, hey, you know what? Kind of like what Dan said. I want to deliver on this app in less than 400 milliseconds, 99.1% of the time. That's SLIs combined to make an SLO. If that makes any sense.
Now my head's spinning. I have no idea what you just said.
Okay. So put it in a different example. You said, I need my app to work.
Yeah.
So AT&T was a good example. 3 or 4 weeks ago, McDonald's went down. Their app didn't work in New York City, Seattle, LA.
Just the phone app. You're not talking in-store kiosk. You're talking the phone app.
Right. Their phone app.
Yeah.
And so when people couldn't order their breakfast, it was down for like 4 hours.
Madness.
People freaked out. They went to the store. Now, a normal McDonald's store, because they're so dependent on the app, they staff accordingly. So instead of having 8 people able to take your order, they have less people all working on delivering on your order on the kiosk in the app. So all of a sudden, there's a line out the door at every McDonald's in New York City. People are frustrated. Customer experience is terrible right now. People got mad, and they probably went down the street to a competitor. Yeah. Or they skipped the breakfast, and they're not very happy with McD's, right? So this kind of thing happens. A week or two after that, Panera went down. Panera didn't go down for 4 hours. They went down for 4 days.
Are you Oh, I see. I didn't hear about that one.
And so people think, hey, you know what? Everything's 99.99%, but it's not, because it's hard to have all these microservices delivering to make sure that your app is delivering on time. And the way to measure that is with a service level objective that is maintaining all of the metrics and the parameters that you need to keep customer experience happy.
Do you know the Panera story well?
Yeah. Do you want me to
I'm just curious of what happened. Like, that's, 4 hours is like.
I think that was a cyber one, wasn't it? Like
was it an attack? Okay.
Yeah, that was a cyber attack. So, here locally in Detroit right now, we're dealing with Ascension, for example.
Yeah.
Right. And
how did that get on the news? Because my wife's in the medical field, right? And we're sitting there watching the news, and she's like, Ascension got hit with a hack. And I go, how did that get out? Because like, I've sat in boardrooms, I've sat at different companies, and like, if you get hacked, you aren't calling the press. How did the hell did that get out?
I think they have to report it as a public thing. Yeah.
Yeah. When it's of mass quantity, it has to be reported. But I'll tell you, my daughter had a soccer injury, and everybody said, don't go to Ascension. It'll take you 2 weeks to get any results. And it's that bad. And we have some friends in the medical field that said, yeah, we're waiting over a week to get results that usually take a few hours.
Wow.
Because all their systems are still down. 2 or 3 weeks later, they have damage.
The problem is I feel sorry for that CISO, because once the news hits, you got every security sales rep that's been at 13 companies over the last 12 years calling them going, I can help you with your problem.
Yeah, that's true.
And what do you, at that point, it's like, you're calling on your trusted, colleagues in your network. And you know what I mean? Like, your life is hell for 6 months, because everybody rubs your nose in the proverbial, garbage.
But
they call them
to a point that you were making before, like what an example of an SLO. So I'll give you an example of a major amusement park company. One of the things they have is thumb readers to get into the park. Like, you put your thumb and it reads your thumb, and then you get in. They have an SLO that when you put your thumb, that will respond within I think it's like 1 second to let you in, like 99% of the time. Like, they want it can't be 100, because there are system issues. So like, you can't establish it at 100%, because that means you have zero failure. There's always going to be some sort of failure, but because there's slowness and things like that. That's what they want to measure, and they measure that so they can understand the result of that. Or like when you're on the app and you said, I want to book, a ticket, in line, whatever. I try not to say the specific thing, but in line, it will, it will respond in a certain period of time. So setting these objectives is what people are doing. That's what an SLO is. Like, what does your customer expect, and measure that.
We finally gave in to the thumbprints, didn't we? I think we fought it for 10, 12 years with them trying, and we finally gave in. I finally gave in.
Well, now they rely on it. So like when it's slow, they get a queue of people because they're not staffed to handle it any other way. It's like,
at least we're not getting RFID implants in our arms. That was Randy. You wanted it, didn't you? When PegoCon was doing it,
I thought about it. It's kind of cool. I don't know.
It's not cool. I don't know. I don't know what. It's definitely not. But then again,
stuff, aren't they now? I don't know.
Well, people are against the retina thing too.
Did you do the airport when you guys flew in? Did they know who you were and you didn't have to show ID or your ticket?
Yeah, Delta's got that in Detroit now. Yeah.
So this is what drives me. This is what perplexed me a bit. I opted in for it, but I never gave them my picture. And when I walked up for the very first time, it put me through. And I'm like, it's not like Clear where you like set up your facial recognition. I have pre-check, but I never took a picture of pre-check. They just did a background.
Yeah, no, they got your license and your passport.
Yeah, but how did they know it was me?
Like everybody knows Bob.
Is that yeah.
Yeah.
Right. No, but like I was like I'm like, you can go on through. I didn't have to show my boarding pass or anything. I'm like, wait a minute. I never set up my my picture.
I'll tell you, I love that system. And when you're not in Detroit and you don't get it, you get mad.
So I pulled a Louis C.K. because I had to go to Seattle, and then coming back, they didn't have it, and they actually had a long line to wait. And I was like, such a spoiled dick. Like I wanted no part of it. Like it was, I got to pull out my license now. Like blasphemy.
And then on that, like you put the license in, and sometimes it takes like a while. Like 5-6 seconds, and that drives you crazy, right? Before it does that, he puts it in.
Yeah.
And you're like,
oh yeah. So let me ask you this: who sets these SROs? Is it like? Let's say it's McDonald's, and they want whatever sub-millisecond. Is that them setting them up for is that them putting it on themselves, or is it customers giving feedback going, dude, this is stupid, or this is slow, or like who sets these? Is it a combination of all of it?
A combination of product management and software development, I would say. Like McDonald's, believe it or not, they have product managers, like product manager for drive-through, product manager for kiosk. But they a lot of times dictate, like, we've done tests, and here's where we would where if it's slower than this, we get churn or we piss people off, So,
and what they're doing that by, like, just no different than a movie, bringing in 10,000 people to watch or mess around with something, and then they give candid feedback.
A lot of times I start with like a stab.
Right.
And then it's easy to tweak.
If it takes 10 seconds, people are going to be pissed off. If it takes 1 second, it's probably not so bad.
I was in a call today with our New York market, and they were talking about strategy work that we were doing at a ketchup company that I won't name. But the Coke Freestyle machines?
Yeah.
They're coming out with that as a condiment section at like Five Guys.
So you could do like Tabasco and ketchup together? Yeah,
and mayo, chup, and like there's like 400 different things. And the guy sitting next to me in the office, he goes, was the market asking for this? So it's like that's kind of where
can you dial in the percentages like you can with the pop?
Yes. Yeah. Like Tabasco 1, 2, 3, 4. Like nice. There's, if you go on Instagram, they have like, it rhymes with Schmeint's remix.
Okay.
But like there's already videos up of like it like going through the process of getting a customized ketchup thing.
It sounds great. I have a Five Guys that just opened up nearby me.
I don't know where it's going. No, it's in Florida now, so it isn't here yet. They're testing it. But what I'm saying is that the market asked for it. So that's what I was kind of getting back to you was when you're developing these SROs, is it, I guess they're forever evolving, correct? Because if you're getting constant feedback or someone's people are bitching. I mean, how do you know they're bitching though? Because they could just go to Tim Hortons in the morning and screw McDonald's. I don't mean to keep using them as an example, but sometimes
we've had customers say that, where they say, your SLOs have helped us figure out the threshold before you lose a customer, because by the time a customer is complaining, we've lost a whole bunch before that first one.
There's 9 that left. When I'm making up fake math, but I think like it's probably 10% actually take the time and bitch. That means you got some brand loyalty. So that says for me, I'm like, I'm out. Like, I'm fine with the Dunkin' Donuts, even though they have paper cups now, and they coffee's awful. Used to be great in the styrofoam. I don't know why it's bad in the paper. Do you know that? Did you realize that? We're getting on weird tangents with the whole McDonald's coffee fast food. Now that's all I'm thinking about now.
Well, you can't burn yourself with it, at least.
Is that what it is?
I was assuming.
But what I'm saying is these so the SROs have to be ever evolving, right? I think getting back to
they are, yeah, and
against NPS, with customer sat measures.
Yep.
Also against revenue, stores with better, when quick serve restaurants are good for this. Stores with better response times to their applications see higher revenue than ones that don't. Stuff like that.
Automotive dealerships that can deliver a credit app faster, for example, or having those types of SLOs in place that exist today.
Yeah. See, now that's, I don't mean to get on tangents, but that's another thing when you talk about auto dealerships. I had this thing, the new Amazon stores where you like scan a QR code and then you personalize the experience. Like, I almost think, why isn't everyone doing that tomorrow? Like, I feel like that, give me a personalized experience when I walk in. Like, let me steer. Like, I don't want to be sold. Let me, you know what I mean? Like, I think that's where everybody's head's at. And
you would be like an ideal customer.
Who?
Well, anybody that wants to be, be able to be in control and steer.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, here's my options. Here's my credit plate. Anyway, so give me like I want to like not another use case, but give me an example where I'm trying to think like something was, it's always, but everything was fine. And then you said, hey, you plugged in your software. You're like, okay, here's a glaring red flag, but the customer had no idea because everything they thought was fine. I'm throwing you a quick curveball, but I mean, I don't know if you have an example.
A lot of people focus on we were hard down for 4 days for every customer. The reality situation is that the way you lose customers is when you have those intermittent, what we call hidden outages or micro outages, where how you'll fill something out on a website and you hit a button and it says, sorry, error occurred, and then you got to fill the form out again and you just want to throw the computer out the window.
Ain't doing it.
Right. Those things are called micro outages or we call hidden outages. Because it's really important to the consumer, but that's to you, that's an outage. Now the business may not think that they're out, right? They won't report that as a major outage, but it's an individual outage. It kind of just hiccuped. So what SLOs do is they measure each one of those against a target. Like, we don't want that. We want that to happen as little as possible, and being able to understand when it is happening, because without service level objectives, people don't know that that's actually happening. Like, IT doesn't know that that's happening.
Right? How could you?
Right. So being able to understand that, and it's going to happen from time to time because there's a network glitch or whatever between you and whatever. But being able to understand how often it's happening and be able to control that and be able to identify those is huge. So even though people might think it's fine, I don't have any major outages. My systems have all been up for the last 6 months. The reality of the situation is you might be having these micro outages in there that's really affecting your customers and pissing your customers off, and you just don't see it.
Right.
Yes. So something that we didn't talk about is our platform does a whole lot of calculation in the back end. So, for example, when you say you want a 99% uptime or delivery or whatever your SLO is for 99%, the remaining 1% to get to 100 is what we consider an error budget, right? And that's measured over 28 days by default, but whatever you want to configure. that error budget, when it starts to burn, we alert you in the way that you want to be alerted, right? And we fit into your existing workflow so that you got the customer is able to see when those SEV 2s and 3s and 4s or those micro outages start to happen, and they're able to be much more proactive on incidents that are not delivering at the level they want to deliver at. And that's how we help eliminate SEV 1s.
It's kind of amazing to me the granularity we've gotten as a just in everything. I again, because we're spoiled customers. I think that's what's driving this whole thing. Because we're all a bunch of idiots and drooling consumers that need our stuff now. So I mean, for that we thank you.
Well, thank you so much. Oh. Well, I'll tell you what we want to do though, and I know that you guys might be open to this. I wouldn't mind putting together anybody that wants to learn about SLOs, putting together a happy hour. Hosted by Nobl9 and IT in the D. And
there's no learning at our happy hours. Sorry, just so you know.
Oh, I know. There's no learning, but it'll be fun. It'll be a fun networking event, right? People get to meet each other, learn about things. So if you want to do something like that, I'm open to doing something like that. We can even put it right now on the broadcast.
I got a few more people I want to connect you to on the day job side. So let's talk offline.
Okay. Sounds good.
But hey, Dan Sarr, can't thank you enough. Nobl9 is the nobl9.com is the website if you want to mess around with it. Definitely cool stuff. I learned a thing or two. Hopefully you did too. And you're not confused by the never ending list of acronyms going on in our world. But hey, on behalf of Bob and Randy, do us all a favor, drink up your drinks, get your phone numbers. You don't got to go home. You just got to get the hell out of here. See you next week. Drive careful. Beat it.